Hi guys, my name is David and welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to be talking about The Swallowed Man by Edward Carey. So a little bit of backstory about how this book came to be in my life. I recently went up to my favourite comic book shop up in central London, and I was walking past, one of my favourite bookshops up in London, and I was browsing through the horror section as I usually do, and I came across a display, and on the first two shelves they had loads of copies of this book. So I thought, okay, maybe it's a new release. I'm pretty sure it was published in 2020. I could be wrong about that. I will actually put the date that this was published on the screen somewhere. But there was something about the cover that drew me in. Its simplistic, artistic style of just a single arm holding a candle in the dark. I'm not sure why, but I was drawn towards this book for some weird reason. So I picked it up and I read the synopsis. I read, I think, the first page of the book, and I was hooked. I was interested. It got my attention, and I was thinking, you know what? I'll give it a chance. So, before I get into today's video, let me just say that this is just going to be my own thoughts and feelings, and of course, this is going to be a spoiler-free video. So, this revolves around Geppetto, yes, Pinocchio's father. This actually focuses on Geppetto's time within the belly of the whale. So if you've seen the Disney movie or the many adaptations of Pinocchio, then you know that Geppetto, when he was searching for his son Pinocchio, he got swallowed by a whale. He spent some time in there, and eventually his son found him and rescued him. But this story retells what Geppetto actually did within this whale. This isn't a happy story. This isn't a Disney retelling. This isn't something that you should read to a kid. Even though this was in the horror section, I wouldn't classify this as horror. It's very depressing. It focuses on isolation, acceptance, and trying to find your way in the world, I suppose. Geppetto is questioning his life and his past, and he's reminiscing over memories. He still has a deep affection of his son, but because he's in a very isolated situation that is cut off from humanity and his son, he kind of slips into madness. Not completely batshit insane, but he does tilt towards that area. So the story opens up with Geppetto being swallowed by the whale, which is sometimes called a whale, sometimes called a shark, and sometimes called a sea beast or creature or monster. This is also only told from his perspective. He is the only real character within this story. This is Geppetto's story. Yes, it does mention Pinocchio, about how Geppetto found this lump of wood, and as he was carving it out, when he was carving the head and the eyes blinked when they were carved, and when he carved an arm it moved, and when he carved the leg it actually kicked him. There is no good fairy in this book. There is no Jiminy Cricket. There is no Pleasure Islands. I'm pretty sure there is no cat, even though I'm pretty sure it was briefly mentioned in this book. There is no Wish Upon a Star and all that lovely, dovey, fantastic stuff that the Disney movie portrayed. This just focuses on Geppetto and his son. And it's interesting that when Geppetto actually carves Pinocchio, he regards him as an object. He doesn't see him as a living, breathing creature or human, because he's not in Geppetto's eyes. He made him, and as a result, he should be treated as an object, something that he made. So he puts a hook on the back of Pinocchio and hangs him up with all of his tools in his possessions. But as time goes on, he learns to love Pinocchio as a son. Even though it's a very unusual situation, he tries to accept it. And Pinocchio, in doing so, has to learn what it means to be alive, what it means to try to be human, even though he knows that he's not human. And yes, when he does tell lies, his nose grows, but I'm pretty sure in the Disney movie, whenever he tells the truth, his nose shrinks down back to its normal size. But in this story, when his nose grows, the only way that it can go back to its normal shape is for Geppetto to basically saw it and to cut it off and to like sand it and mold it into the original shape. And this doesn't hurt Pinocchio in any way, but is very, very distressing for him. So the reason why Geppetto's in this belly of this beast is that Pinocchio went missing. In the movie, he went off to Pleasure Island, but as I said in this book, there is no Pleasure Island. The reason why he went missing is because I think he got distracted and he ended up in this seaside town where he was ridiculed and banished, and he was put in the ocean and set adrift, and he was banished and exiled from the members of this village, which was very depressing and upsetting for Geppetto to find out, as at this point he's very proud of Pinocchio to actually be his son. So what Geppetto does in the belly of this whale, he tries to survive, and he finds this massive wooden ship which he takes up as his home. He finds all these candles and he is reminiscing about his life. He found out about his past, more specifically his father. He was in the ceramic business and he was put in charge of painting this specific design on plates. And Geppetto retells his tale about how his father was obsessed with this one design on this plate, that if he got it even slightly wrong, he would be punished for it. So he had to make this design his life and everything. And we also find out about how Geppetto's father reacted when he found out that his son wanted to be a carpenter, and how that didn't really go down well. Geppetto's father wasn't really abusive or anything like that. He was just very fixed on his ways. He wanted to keep Geppetto within the family business, and he regarded this carpentry, wood carving thing as something that intruded on that. But he was never really abusive to his son, either physically or emotionally. He just wanted to do what's best for his son, which was what he thought was right for his son, but he was completely blindsided by the fact that he couldn't control his son. His son had to find his own way in life, even if it meant doing something that wasn't what his father wanted him to actually be. We also find out about Geppetto's love life as well, which was very, very pleasing and shocking. I'm not sure about how many relationships Geppetto discusses in this book, whether it's 3 or 4, roughly by that. And Geppetto finds all this wood that he finds in his ship, and that has come through the mouth of this whale, and he is painting all these portraits of the women that he's actually loved and been in a relationship with. As he does this as a form of, like, looking at it as a form of a photo. It's a very tragic story about his love life, about how everyone moved on, and he isn't angry or upset about it. It's just a part of his life that he wanted to actually talk about. He also talks about stories about these, I would say, made up boys that were made of these unusual materials. Like, one of them was made of this ceramic china, and he had a brother that always broke stuff, and his parents were completely obsessed and frightened about his brother going anywhere near him, because they actually feared that if he went anywhere near him, he would break and he would so-called murder his brother. There's a part of the book where Geppetto puts all these broken bits of porcelain and china, which also come in through the mouth of this whale, and how he makes this figurine of this little boy. And he describes it as like putting all the puzzle pieces together and fixing this little boy into his original form. There's also a section where he builds this very, very creepy little boy or figurine. I'm not sure what it is, but I'll put a picture up here somewhere. And it's very unusual. It's very creepy to look at. And he describes the head as being very, very squishy. He also talks about this crab that is in his beard, because he's in this situation and he hasn't shaved his beard. It's been growing really, really long. And there's this crab that's living in his beard, and he gives it a name. It's a friend. It's a character within this book. It doesn't speak. It's just a normal standard crab. And it's a very nice relationship how Geppetto and this crab kind of coexist with each other. They don't bother each other, but they kind of accept each other, and and all that. I think that the crab bites Geppetto at one point, but it's really sad about how and when the crab actually dies, and Geppetto gets this shell and he like paints a picture of this crab, which he names. I can't really remember the name that this crab actually is given, but it's a very, very sad moment. So because Geppetto's in this terrible situation and place, obviously there is the imminent danger of him not being able to survive. How can he carry on if he doesn't have any food? There is a imminent threat of him running out of these candles or means of creating fire and giving his environment some light. There's a threat that if he runs out of this stuff, which is a very, very high possibility, that he will be condemned to this world of complete darkness. I'm not entirely sure if it's actually mentioned about how much food Geppetto has, whether there is a concern of him running out of food. I'm not entirely sure what he actually eats. Maybe fish or any living creatures that come in through the mouth of this whale. But it's not really as prominent as I would expect, as we all know how this story is going to end. I won't say exactly how it ends in case you haven't seen Pinocchio. In that case, what, haven't you seen it? It's a classic Disney movie. Or if you haven't seen a Disney movie, go and watch one of the other movies. I'm sure they're exactly the same thing. If you have watched the Disney movie or any of the Pinocchio movies, you know what the outcome of this story is. It doesn't differentiate or deter from that ending. And as I said, even though Pinocchio is in this story, he's mostly told either in flashbacks or he's mentioned or seen at the end. But this is completely Geppetto's story and his perspective. It does have really good pictures in this. This is an illustrated version. Not sure if they're completely done by the author himself, Edward, or whether he collected all these pictures and put them all in this book. But these pictures variate from standard drawings that you would see in a Roald Dahl story. They're kind of like basic drawings that to give you some sort of element and fill with tools and objects that he's found. There are obviously these diagrams and pictures of all these objects that he builds and makes and finds and creates within this belly of this beast, whether it's a model of the whale or he finds a tooth and he mounts it in his board, or as I said, he finds these bits of wood that he paints these pictures of his past lovers. There is parts of this book where there are pictures of real life people in period clothing. Now, I'm not entirely sure if these are real period pictures of real life people that happen to be put in this book, or whether it's of like people that Edward knew, the author himself knew in real life, or actors or models that were put in a studio and asked to wear period clothing and to like model for a picture for this book. It's really interesting. I mean, I would personally like to actually think that these were pictures that he found like in a flea market that he happened to put in this book. And it's really interesting that when you're reading a section on this, that this photo is actually regarding to, and looking at it and thinking who this person was, what they were thinking at the time, what was life at the time for them, and just reminiscing about this stranger's life. So I really enjoyed this book. It wasn't complete perfection. I didn't fall in love with this book, but it was a very, very good book. As I said, I wouldn't classify this as horror. I'm not sure exactly what I would classify this under, but I did enjoy it. If you are a big fan of Pinocchio and you want to read something that's a bit, well, not a bit, very unusual and very strange and a little bit scary, but a bit depressing as well, even though this does have a happy ending, this isn't a happy read. So keep that in mind, guys. But I would definitely recommend this. At least give it a try. It's not completely massive. It's not a long book by any stretch of the imagination. At least give it a try and see what you guys think. But I personally, I would say, yeah, give it a try. It's not going to blow your mind. It's not going to win any awards. You're not going to come away from it thinking, oh God, this is the best book that I've read in 2022. But it's at least a competent book. It's one that will make you think, especially if you are into psychology, if you are interested in any of the topics I've actually mentioned throughout this video, then I would definitely recommend this. Once again, don't read this to children. This isn't a child's book. This isn't like a spin-off to the Disney movie. This is strictly for mature readers only. So that's it, guys. That is my video about The Swallowed Man. Let me know, have you heard of this book? Have you read it? What did you think about it? Are you inspired to pick it up and give it a read? Have I encouraged you to give this a try? Please comment down below and we can discuss it, and I would love to get everyone's perspective about it, whether you've read it or not. So with all that out of the way, all said and done, have a great day, read some awesome books, and I will see you all in my next video.